June 12th, 2023. Well, I want to address the interview that Ross Coldhart had with David Grusch, who was a former intelligence officer in the U.S. intelligence community, former Air Force, and then a geospatial intelligence agency and the National Reconnaissance Office, which are two very highly secured areas. And he was also on the UAP task force. And at any rate, aired on News Nation last night, and the promos for it have been put out for the whole week before of this David Grush's statements about UAPs and the crash retrieval program, which has always been one of the most controversial areas, I think, of the whole UFO subject over the years. A lot of people are more comfortable with the sightings and the landings and things like this. The crash retrieval thing has been a bit up in the air, although ever since the revelations about the Roswell crash and the various attempts to explain it by the government that seem somewhat inconsistent and strained, it has been out there. And in fact, people are really deep in the subject, which I definitely wasn't in those years by any means. There was a man named Stringfield who did a lot of investigations of this subject also. But anyhow, I want to I think this is a very important development. I'm hopeful that Congress will take some action on it. But this is also a difficult subject because it involves probably the most classified subjects in the United States national security state. So, and when you're dealing with things that are that buried in the, unacknowledged special access programs and so forth, that's a deep issue. But and I've also seen some reaction from people that are normally into the things that are kind of a little out there as being very unusually negative, and I'm like, and they have all kind of weird conspiratorial thinking about this subject, the way that. But the real fact and why this should be taken seriously is unlike, say, a Bob Lazar story or things of that sort. Is first of all, this individual does have very solid credentials. Okay, he is who he says he is in terms of his, history and employment. The second thing that I think is that it has actually been, he's gone to the Inspector General of the intelligence community and has reported this, and it's been investigated, and the subject has then been forwarded to the appropriate congressional, Senate, and House intelligence committees for as an urgent matter. Okay, so in other words, apparently the Inspector General's investigation has led to confirmation, okay, behind the scenes. And of course, because of the security around the issue, he's not free to tell too much about what the details are. But what he has said basically dovetails fairly well with what was in the Eric Davis and Admiral Wilson memos that have been much discussed in the past few years by people like Richard Dolan and others, and was entered into the congressional record, when the House had its hearing last year. This is okay. So that kind of give you an idea that the Wilson Davis thing only refers to one instance, one program with one contractor who had possession of a apparently largely intact craft, which was a big shocker. That a crash, a damaged craft would be one thing, but intact, how did they get that? But apparently that was the story, and this goes back to the Stephen Greer, which he's a kind of a controversial person who I think has done a lot back in let's say the 1990s to address this subject, but in more recent years has got into a lot of controversial things. I won't say more about that but he was the guy who brought information to this Admiral Wilson through some other intermediaries, and Wilson looked into it, and ultimately it stirred up enough dust that he got a meeting with the people from the contractor involving the program manager, the head of security for the project, and the lawyer for the, and they basically told him that he is not going to be cleared for the program, but they gave him enough information to kind of, I guess, say, hey, look, you're not stupid. You found out something, but you're to keep away from it, basically. But he was told that, yes, it does involve a reverse engineering program on a vehicle not of this world. Okay. And so the point I'm making is that he then apparently appealed this decision to the committee in the Pentagon, which deals with special access programs, and was rebuffed, and apparently got the message that his career was going to be could go one of two ways. One would be retirement with a loss of rank, or two, promotion to vice admiral and to be the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. So what I'm trying to get to is this sort of falls right into what, in other words, the Grusch comments are supportive of this or confirming of this. And of course, Grusch is more global than that. He's alerting that there's much more than one contractor or one craft. It's much more vast issue. And in fact, another person has suggested the number is above something like 12 or something. Who knows what the real number is, but apparently it's multiple. And so these are a bit surprising revelations even to me. I definitely believed that Roswell was probably a crash and all that, and I probably thought there were others, but apparently this is a little more a little more out there than that, more cases. So I think what we're looking forward to is to see what Congress now does about this, and what can they do about it. He asserts that, for instance, the head of AARO recently basically denied that we had any positive evidence, I guess exact wording, but that, and of course the wording is very important to get exact, but essentially there's no confirmation of anything that's extraterrestrial or doesn't obey the known laws of physics, etc., in their possession. But it also seems that what we have now is that Grusch says that the AARO has not been cleared for these programs and doesn't have access to them, so they can't simply follow leads that they might have heard from some witness and then go to the site and actually inspect what's there or get documents of what studies have been done or anything like that. They don't have the access to get this. So in a sense, the AARO people are not lying to Congress. They're not committing perjury because they can't really confirm it. I can't confirm it either, right? So I could honestly say, I cannot confirm this. If I was under oath, can you confirm that this has really happened? And I might say, well, I think, don't tell me what you think. What can you testify specifically Then I'd have to say, no, I can't, right? So the same thing apparently is what he's doing too, maybe. Or maybe he's under instructions just to withhold it. We don't know that for sure. I'm not getting accusations about that. That's I think there's almost too much anger in this whole subject sometimes, and intolerance. You can't prove it, so shut up, or whatever. On the other hand, if they don't come out, then they're obviously lying to everybody. I think it's a complicated situation, particularly concerning the laws and security rules involved and other things that could be involved too, which have been alluded to in some of this, but I'm not getting into that area. It is interesting, how has this security been so strictly enforced for so long? And of course, my position on this always has been, well, it really hasn't been in one way, and another way it has been. And the way it hasn't been is that we know a lot about it. We know about Roswell. We can talk all about Roswell, right? But one thing we don't know for sure, is it really true? And that kind of goes with a lot of the other cases that have been alleged, right? And so, but I think this is a major development. I hope that people in the UFO uh, UAP, let's say, interested community will write to their member senators and congressmen and ladies and Congress ladies, whatever, and insist that they follow up on this and not let this go away. I mean, so many times in the past we've got to a certain breaking point and then the whole thing kind of falls back. And hopefully it won't this time, although there's no guarantee. I think at a minimum, the people at this point, after as many years as this has been going on, it looks to me like there's no immediate um, reverse engineering of a national security importance that you know that has to be kept secret. This is not really quite like a Manhattan Project on the verge of developing the nuclear bomb, I don't think. This is an ongoing study, which apparently the progress has been limited, I guess, from all sources we've heard. And I think all those there are the gee whiz guys that we already have vehicles and we're flying them and all that. Well, okay, we'll see what happens on that. But it's also probably also true that the Chinese and the Russians have also had retrievals that we have. They're both large countries with great capabilities, sophisticated air defense systems and the like. So presumably they also have encountered these issues as well. And probably have their own secret programs, So I think it would be kind of good at this point that at least that we acknowledge that this is real. And there's a lot that the scientific community could look at. I mean, if bodies, for instance, have been recovered, a lot of the questions of exobiology should be able to be advanced pretty rapidly, I would think. Have they been in secret? I don't know. I mean, but this would be interesting what they found out. I mean, are these carbon-based life forms? Are they based on something else? Do they have something like what we call DNA, or do they have something totally different? Are they actually authentic, naturally evolved beings, or are they some kind of artificially constructed biological entities, or all these kind of things? The metallurgy might be interesting. What we can learn about the materials. Many rumors for many years of isotopic differences between similar materials on Earth. There are other rumors of, he raised some other issues in that is Grusch in his interview on News Nation, which I'm sure they'll probably be reposted on YouTube by somebody, I assume. I know the short segments were, or maybe they'll replay it on News Nation. I don't know, but it's worth watching if you haven't seen it. He says a bunch of things. He apparently does have a background in physics, as I do also. There's some things he said I have a few questions about, but that's natural. I think we're in the speculation of where they come from. I still think extraterrestrial hypothesis is most likely to be the case. They always say from another dimension, and I always say whatever that means. Of course, I'm fully aware of the concept of string theory existing, the idea of multidimensional spaces, but remember those dimensions are usually considered to be compactified into Planck length regions, and so I mean, but anyhow, well, that's neither here nor there. But I think it'd be good to know more about it and get some idea of does anybody have any idea how these things were actually propelled? If they do have some gravity manipulation, does anybody have any idea how this works at all? I mean, or is this something that really eludes us? I mean, very interesting subject. That's what I'm saying. I think it'd be good for the broader scientific community to finally be brought into this. Because I think the problem you have is it's so restrictive in the most restricted areas of national security state, with the highest of security clearance and everything that involves in being in something like that. I think that so many of the creative people in the scientific community probably just aren't willing to sign up for that. And the inability to share it freely with other collaborators reduces their effectiveness even if they did. And so I think that it's time that we need to kind of open this up somewhat in order to be able to exploit whatever knowledge there is to be gleaned. It may be less than we think. It may well be that we'd be like a person in the 19th century looking at a contemporary computer or iPhone or something and trying to figure out how it works. I mean, first of all, how do you plug in the charger for the phone? There's no network to connect to because there wasn't one back then. You know, you see what I'm saying? That it may well be that a lot of it's just going to elude us, or maybe not. This is unclear. But anyway, I think Congress needs to move. Another issue I think that the Congress can work on is who's in charge of this anyhow. I mean, I think this is the big mystery. If Admiral Wilson wasn't clear to know about it, being the deputy J2 on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if Mellon, who was the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, didn't know and wasn't cleared for it, up to now, apparently the intelligence committees weren't cleared for it. Who is? Who runs this show? Does the president know what's going on? Does the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, the director of some other secret agency? I mean, I think this is something that Congress should find out about. I think that's the thing they can probably pursue the most effectively to begin with, is to finally get in touch with who's running the show. And then maybe they'll find out if there's any legitimate reason for this level of secrecy or not. I mean, or is it just a case where some agency got the power to keep it that way and they don't want to relinquish it? After all, bureaucrats in power generally don't want to relinquish the power they have. So anyhow, I'll be wrapping this up for now, and I'll be posting this on Rumble as well. And of course, the address is my social media account, as always. It'll be in the description below. But I thought I had to say something about this breaking story, and we'll just see where it goes from here. So until next time.